pockets of racial tensions across certain parts around the country. And we're starting to now see the race card being played. And just, your initial reaction to some of these racial tensions that exist. And we're talking about Phoenix also in KwaZulu-Natal, where we've seen some of these scenes of violence, but also race cards being played out.
Look, we have a democracy that is in tatters, but in many ways, our spatial geography is still that of apartheid. And in areas of working class, poor, and very low middle class, they exist in those old apartheid areas. That's one. Secondly, we have not gotten rid of the race-based way of looking at each other. Indeed, the Race Classification Act still remains on our statute book, and we use it. Thirdly, we have not created a nation of South Africans. We are a disparate group struggling against each other, different languages, sometimes different religions, and often on ethnic bases. And these reflect themselves in the configuration of our provinces. It's almost a worse replication of the Bantustans of the apartheid era. Now, what we have not engendered is a sense of cohesion. Instead of cherishing the real diversity we have, I mean, our country is supposed to be the third most diverse on earth. We have found ways to divide ourselves besides the deliberate neglect by government in many of those old apartheid areas. Let's be very frank. In Phoenix, though, there is a mixture of people living there, and there are very strong faith-based leaders. I had occasion to earlier, was it this year or last year? No, and towards the end of last year, address a meeting with a few imams and other religious leaders of other faiths, calling for cohesiveness after that horrific Isipingo mosque court case, if you recall. Now, communities that find themselves not understanding what is going on around them, and they see on social media especially and mainstream media a constant 24/7 barrage of all sorts of images. Fear is going to emerge, and they start going in unto themselves. And who is in the household? Parents, children, and so on. And it's not usually that diversity that we see, because it's in a home. And the likelihood of people then reacting as if their religion, their language, their ethnicity is being attacked is high. We actually have, and this is Mandela Month. On Sunday will be the 103rd birthday of Madiba. We have shattered that reconciliatory spirit, that ability to rise above narrow politics and narrow ethnicity and language and religion, and speak to people to pull together. That kind of leadership we have been sorely lacking. Instead of getting people together, people have tried to explain themselves, whereas they've ignored what's happening on the ground in terms of ordinary people, their fears, the alarm, because this is the worst moment that we've experienced in recent memory, not only in democracy, where we've seen such a wide scale burning and the other anarchy, the violence. We've also seen a shocking video of people of Indian origin burning a shack. How does somebody do that? What kind of mentality does this and think that it won't add to the tensions? So it's time for all of us to recognize we are the same. Our biology is the same, except for some external features like the amount of melanin in pigmentation and maybe hair texture. But God is one, and we are all children of God, and we should actually now begin to pull together, as I'm seeing in different communities, this them and us, when all of us are us. They are of us, we are of them. And we need to get over the apartheid nightmare that still persists in our mentality. Yeah.
Yes. Now, also, Dr. Cooper, what we find also is prominent personalities, and sometimes they exploit the situation. They actually thrive on creating the type of tension that we're speaking about, the racial tension, the division as well, and people who are opportunistic when they make inflammatory remarks about certain groups of people or certain races. Now, this is something also that we need to guard against, because we've seen a lot of that happen on social media. We've seen voice notes coming through. We've seen certain video clips where we see prominent people sometimes making these inflammatory remarks and comments that obviously raises the level of racial tension that we see around us.
Absolutely, and those people should be called out. I think that if we get any of that, we should actually go to send it to the police, even though the police are significant by their absence and almost useless at the best of times. In this crisis, they've shown their incompetence. But I think it's about time that we call and object to people who may be in leadership, and particularly public leadership, where we pay them for what they're supposed to be doing. And instead of calming, they raise fears. That is, there are laws against that, and it should be acted against. Having said that, I think that, we've got so many commissions, statutory commissions, I'm not talking about Zondo now, statutory commissions dealing with various issues, permanent commissions, human rights, gender, culture, language, religion, etc. We don't have a commission on racism. This is the biggest elephant in all our rooms, private and public. It seems that this government that has failed us is afraid to tackle this demon of racism head on and exorcise it from our midst. They have not experienced the engagement of people coming together across their multitudes in places like the pilgrimage, where nobody is different from anybody else. In other religious gatherings where you see the beauty of humanity, I think it's time that we got rid of apartheid hangovers, like the Race Classification Act, make it voluntary for people to identify themselves in some way. We need to forge a nationhood. And on top of this, we get the Modi government, the right-wing, nationalist, Hindu kinds of people setting out messages. I saw a clip that was sent to me by somebody who was disgusted with it, saying Indians are being attacked. who are these? I mean, if they are here, they must be the Guptas, and that their businesses are being attacked and so on. People are of some background, and we are South Africans first, of maybe Indian origin, but anything else is outrageous. And if there is that threat, then the Modi government must take their people away, send their ships and send their planes, and I'm sure there'll be a place for them in India. But if you're a South African, you must think and act like a South African, and how we treat the worst off amongst us underpins our own humanity. The kind of prejudices that some people who cry racism often is shocking. They do not treat of people who work for them in their homes and in their neighborhoods, and how they engage with people, the swear words they use and think. All of that is a throwback to the bad apartheid era. And in these times of crisis, we see that. But thankfully, we also see the best. We see and I've seen that, going around, people queuing up waiting for bread and milk outside the mosque, and people are giving in the name of goodness and welfare, in the name of common humanity. That kind of service, that kind of heroism in times of need is what we need to see out there.
Well, Dr. Cooper, thank you very much for that. And obviously on that positive note, we'd like to thank you. We do appreciate your time with us here on News and Views this morning. And we wish you safety. We wish you all the best, and please take care.
Thank you.
Dr. Seth Cooper joining us this morning, and we're going to go for a quick break. We come back, we'll be joined by Humaira Mayat. We're talking international top stories.
Once again, Maulana Timol will be doing the annual Qurbani.